Chair of the George River Floodplain Risk Management Committee. I welcome everyone to tonight's meeting, our first one for this term. I declare the meeting open at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of all lands, waters and sky in the Georges River area. I pay my respect to elders past, present, and the extent that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who live, work and meet on these lands. I'd also like to give a notice of live streaming of the committee meeting. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded for minute-taking purposes and is also being webcast live on Council's website. This recording will be made available on Council's website. I'd also like to acknowledge the code of meeting practice. The order of business is shown in the agenda, which is made available. Staff and public are reminded this meeting is open. Doors to the meeting room are to be left open unless the meeting moves into closed confidential session according to section 15 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Council's Code of Meeting Practice prohibits the electronic recording of meetings without the express permission of Council. Mobile phones must be turned to silent during the meeting. Now, before I move to apologies, just because it's unfamiliar faces in the room, go around just introduce ourselves. So, Nick, Chair of the Georgia Floodplain Risk Committee.
Hayley Barnes, Manager Strategic Placemaking.
It's Pulak Sahab from Bayside Council. I'm the Floodplain Engineer from Bayside.
Hi everyone, this is Asa Shumar from Kellow External Council. I'm a Castle Management Planner.
Yeah, hi, I'm Aaron Sellers, the Community Representative.
Hi, Firoz Ahmed, Senior Development Engineer, George River Council. Hi, Yola. Priyani Jaivira, Principal Development Engineer, George River Council.
Hello, my name is Sadiq Zaman. I'm from Department of Planning and Environment.
Tom Heath, Manager of City Technical Services, Georgia River Council.
Andrew Ladder, Director of Assets and Infrastructure. And one last.
Just introduce yourself, yeah.
Team Leader for Asset Planning, Stormwater at Canterbury Bankstown Council.
And I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Peter Marnie, Brian Sharon, Teresa Cobb for joining us. So we'll start. Okay. I think we'll start for a motion to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting.
Just need to do apologize.
Are there any apologies?
Yes, we had an apology from David Grasby from Sydney Water and Catherine McMahon, who's our Manager Strategic Planning at Council.
Any other apologies from anyone else?
We also wanted to make note the recent resignation of our Senior Stormwater Engineer, Naveen. Yeah, just so everyone in the room is aware.
Okay. Do I have a mover for those apologies? Sorry, what was your name?
Everyone Sellers.
Yes. Do I have a seconder for that? Okay, wonderful. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against say no. I declare that carried. We now move on to the minutes of the previous Floodplain Risk Management Committee meeting, which was held on Monday, the 20th of September 2021. Now, do I have a mover to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting? Anyone like to move that?
Yeah.
Mover again. Do I have a seconder? All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Now I'll move on to the first agenda item, FRMCC 00223, update on the overland flow floodplain risk management study and plan for Hurstville, Mortdale and Pecos wards. I'll ask Hayley to give us a bit of an overview on that.
So this particular report is providing an update on the overland flow floodplain risk management study and plan for the Hurstville, Mortdale and Pecos wards. So as many of you in the room would have been aware, the report was adopted for public exhibition in late 2021. It went on public exhibition in June 2022. Based on that public exhibition, came back to the subject matter experts, the stormwater engineers internally, where we reviewed the the community feedback, as well as the report that was done by the consultants. We found that there were some minor issues with the data, where there was some properties that were being left out of the mapping, which we did believe would cause further planning problems in the future. So we went back, and now we're at a point where we're actually re-looking at the maps, confirming the data, ready to go out for public exhibition again in the next couple of months to hopefully get it all adopted by council in July 2023. It's my understanding that it's not uncommon for these strategies to take quite a while, just because they are dealing with quite contentious issues. We've been talking to Department of Planning through SEDEC for quite a while now, so we are working through it. I suppose one of the good news pieces out of this particular piece of work is it actually takes us down from approximately 6,000 properties that have flood affectations on them to approximately 3,000. So it is a good news story for council in that regard.
Is there any discussion or questions to that fact?
No, so from the mapping that was done from the consultants, it got us just over that 3,000 property mark. The reason why we looked at it again was because, and I tried to explain it in the report, we were getting clusters of properties that were having flood affectations on it, and then we were finding that based on the data that the consultants used to determine which properties had those affectations on it, it was actually leaving out little clusters of properties. So within a street, 20 properties might have been tagged, and then there would have been 2 left out, which we were concerned that would then cause further implications to that cluster that would experience that overland flow occurrence. So we just went back. We wanted to confirm with the maps that we weren't leaving out any properties that should have some planning controls on them in the future. Based on the data, so in the report that got circulated to this committee back in 2021, based on the different parameters they used to determine the different flow levels, that's how it got reduced to that amount. I'll come back with some further the technical information. I'm not a technical expert on this work, but yeah, I can confirm that.
Yeah, so
yeah. Mm. Mm. Yes. That was our issue. Yeah. That was our issue, is that we were concerned that there wasn't a capacity to apply controls to particular properties within a cluster because they weren't being captured within that range. So I can confirm the exact parameters that the consultant came back and used to make sure that we captured those properties. Yeah. No, point taken. We might need to make it clearer in a future report about how that reduction occurred, and I can make sure we step that out. Yeah.
I just want to know there was the senior engineer that just resigned recently that was driving the study, so that's just been unfortunate in the circumstances right now. Can you please use the microphone so people online can hear?
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I think it's mainly because of the AR 2016 update from previous 1987 rainfall, and that's how it's got reduced from 6,000 to 3,000. That's my understanding is for this catchment. The cluster that they're talking about, I think, is just mainly just how you apply the tagging criteria. Some of them were just left out because it doesn't fall into this criteria.
Yeah.
And they had to do it manually. I think it just WMA might be.
Yeah, it was a manual
on that. Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah, I don't know if the
It did for our council, yeah, Bayside, yeah, it did, yeah.
Is there any further discussion on this topic? Do you mind using the mic?
just the nature of the public response. It doesn't, the report doesn't really describe what the feedback was. It was in support or against, or
So a lot of the feedback was asking for information about the process. So how we actually came to the determination of the properties that were affected. A lot of the other feedback was around why didn't my neighbour receive this letter? There wasn't much comment at all on the future capital works that are being suggested as mitigations to the plan. But what we will do when we go back out with community consultation is maybe try and word that consultation a little bit differently to try and engage more people in the conversation, so they think about it as the bigger issue rather than just the individual property as much as possible.
I wish you luck for that. It's very difficult explaining this stuff to the community, and I'm kind of surprised that you only got 17 submissions. In my experience with, well, probably for other people around the room, when you go over this stuff, when you talk to people about tagging their properties, they're up in arms. So they have only 17 submissions on how many properties did you write to? 3,000.
Yeah, just over 3,000. No, just over 3,000.
Yeah, that's an incredibly low response. So, yeah.
No, agreed. It is.
Can I just ask one question? So, when you finalize the whole study, will the report include all the submissions and what response being added? Yeah.
Yeah, so when we prepared the report ready to go back to council last time, when we thought that we would be ready to go, we themed it. So we'll probably put it in themes again next time, just for, we thought we were going to get a lot more responses than we actually did. But yeah, based on the number of responses, we'll figure out the best way to describe it. But if it's only a small amount, we should be able to find a way to provide them all, but maintaining the privacy of people who've put in the submissions, because obviously it's quite controversial for some people.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, yes.
Quick question. No, it's bit technical. I'm not sure whether you could answer or not. So the tagging criteria is based on the 1% AEP, and did you also consider the freeboard 500 millimeter or not?
I'll have to come back to you. I'll have to confirm that one, take it on notes.
No, I think actually freeboard here, so this one is mostly overland flow. So they probably consider freeboard less, not I think 0.3 meter. So not 0.5 meter. So that is because it's it's not like a mainstream flow coming from the creek or river flooding those property. And if you see the studies overland flood plain risk management study, yeah.
Any further discussion? Okay, do I have a move for the update of the overland flow floodplain risk management study plan for Hurstville, Mortown, and Pecos wards? Do I have a move for that? Yes. Do I have a seconder? Yep. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Now we move on to item FRM CC003-23, the hydrological studies update. I'll pass it over to Haley.
Okay, so this report is just providing the committee an update and overview of some particular hydrological studies that we're embarking on. We've just come off just the RFQ's just closed to start work on these particular catchment studies. So as the report outlines, we're looking at the Gannons Park catchment, the Gloucester Road catchment, Smith Park catchment, and the Beverley Park catchment. The reason why these particular catchments have been identified was the localised flooding issues that were happening last year, and then historically from 2015. So what the model was telling us, as well as the community feedback and the investigations that had to happen over the last 12 months.
Is there any discussion on this particular item?
Mr. Chair, yeah, just a couple of questions. Sort of wasn't quite clear on the report, like there's a description of the catchments, but not what the issues were. I assume the issues are identified in the Overland Floodplain Risk Management Study and Plan.
Yeah, so the major capital works component of the flood risk management plan that we spoke about earlier, a lot of these particular studies actually allow us to get to the point where we're comfortable with the construction designs that they're suggesting. So it focuses, the actual report is a little bit more specific on the area, but we as a council have decided to go a little bit more broad and look at the catchment and all of the infrastructure that would be required as grey and green infrastructure for those particular sites. So we're looking at where the consultants have picked up an issue and where they think there might be a mitigation in the form of a capital solution, but we want to look more broadly to make sure we don't cause any adverse impact to the catchment.
Yeah, I assume these are probably recommended actions in the risk management study and plan, and you're fast tracking these.
Yeah.
Before adopting the plan.
We're not. They're an issue regardless. So for some reason the plan stalled and it wasn't adopted. We need to keep moving towards our capital program for our stormwater management.
Sure. Yeah. And hopefully you'll get funding. I assume if the plan gets adopted, then you'll be able to apply for funding to do that.
That's the intention, yeah. And what we're able to do at the moment is fund the investigation work out of the resilience funding that the state government provided after all the rain events last year, because we were a flood affected council. So we're able to use that as a resilience package to help support understanding and progressing those network solutions.
And just last question, was there any so your community engagement will be conducted, so you haven't started that yet?
We're very early in the process. We're at the point where we've just put out the brief for the consultants. We'll review what we get back, and then based on in consultation with the consultant and based on our own community engagement policies, we'll go out to the affected people.
Cool.
Or the community more broadly, depending on what it is.
Is there any further discussion? All right, I'll put that to a vote. Do I have a move for this motion? Gonna move it again? You'll move it this time? Okay, wonderful. Do I have a seconder? You're second this time? Okay. All those in favour, say aye. All those against, I declare it carried. I now declare the meeting closed at 6:49 p.m. Thank you everyone for coming.